So before that, I'd just like to thank you, Gwen and Cheryl, for organizing this indie soapbox. I believe it's a very good chance to give indie developers a chance to really speak up of their game and also to get some feedback about how the game works. And so yeah, thank you for that. And I will talk about the game, more of the game. So if you've never played the game before, TimeOut was a game that kind of relates about time is currency. So basically in a society, everything runs on time. So you want to buy something, you can pay with your time. So if your time depletes, you essentially just die. So you play the role, in the game you play the role of this detective, his name is Sherwood. So he goes on a hunt for this seller of fake time. Okay, so I'm just going to show you the trailer that I had for my game. So just to get a rough sense of, if you've never seen this game before and how it looks like. Yeah, so I'm just going to play it.
My dad's time device. Maybe I should try using it. Yes, speaking.
Once you exit, you get a preference exit.
Chris, can't hear you over the music when you're talking.
Okay, so this is just a rough idea or just the rough visuals of the game itself. So yeah, I'll explain more about that. Okay, so let me just present the game. Yeah, so before I go into the game, I would like to just maybe share a bit more of myself and some of the things that I'm interested in. So recently graduated from the School of Arts, Design and Media in this COVID situation. So it's really a good time, I would say, sarcastically. Yeah, so I major in interactive media. So, and I would consider myself to be just a small indie developer. Yeah, so we originally supposed to have our physical grad show in the Gilman Barracks, but I think due to the COVID situation, we chose to have an online one instead. So it's on this admgradshow.com. So if you're ever interested, you can check that out as well. Okay, so we do have some students as well. They make games in the interactive and as well as the animation side of things. So just a little showcase of what we do in interactive media. We do have we make interactive installations like the ones you see in Art Science Museum. As long as it's interactive, and then we also do devices as well. So I had this little project with one of my group members. We make this light viola. So it's a violin or viola that reacts to light. Okay, so it's just a so that was the drum side. We have this LED stick that lights up. So there's this light sensor that when you kind of move the LED stick over it, you can affect the sound as well. Then we do have some like physical sensors to affect the pitch and so on, to kind of simulate the actual violin. So this is just one of the projects that we did for interactive media. So it's quite fun. We do a lot hands-on as well. And of course, we do have games. Okay, so during year 2, I think it was one of the modules that was called interactive storytelling. I can't remember. Narrative for interaction. Yeah. So it gave me the first chance to kind of work with Unity, because back then I never had any sort of like a background with programming or making a game. So me and my friend Mark, we worked on our first game prototype, and back then we were inspired by this game called Limbo. So I'm sure you guys have heard of it. So we made this game. It's titled Journey to School. So it's Okay, so I'm just gonna play through. So it's a story of basically it's a story of a boy trying to get to school itself, and then along the way he meets like obstacles in the sense of like your alarm clock monsters, which could draw reference to real life. You know, like how we can't really get out of bed, and you know the alarm is constantly kind of trying to haunt us from all of this. Then we do have some black and white theme because you know everything's kind of like in a memory or some kind of a dream itself. Yeah, so this was kind of like the first prototype game that I made. It's called Journey to School. And then subsequently, I think it was in the later semester, we had another module which was I think it's another module also narratives for something. Okay, and then the professor introduced us to Unreal Engine. Back then I hadn't tried out the engine as well. So yeah, we worked with Unreal Engine, and then it um, gave us a more 3D perspective on how we can play certain stuff. Because back then when we were working in Unity, it's like 2D based sprites. Yeah, so I had a 2D part of things, and then now this is the 3D experience. Okay, so this game is called Wind. So I'm just gonna play it as well. So it's a story about this guy called Rupert. So he wakes up in this cave, and then he realizes that there's this kind of wind that's blowing in this one particular direction. So basically, you can see all the environments are just about, you know, the trees are moving in one direction, and then there are some NPCs or characters that are in the environment which is reacting to wind itself. So while playing, the player could figure out like what's this causing this wind, and then you can see some kind of a puzzle that's incorporated slight puzzle mechanics that's in there, and then yeah, so his main goal was to find out what was the cause of the wind. Yeah, so this was in Unreal Engine, and for the assets were all done in kind of like Blender and a low poly style. Yeah, so I had experience with Unity and Unreal's a very rough experience over there. So you can see both games are more towards narrative-driven storylines. Okay, so let me just full screen that. Okay, so it all started with all of this interest. I guess it started off with a game called Minecraft. I think back then when I was a kid, I was very into this game. I think it was in poly when I first started. I started to create like builds on Minecraft because you know Minecraft there's two modes. One is creative and one is survival. So I started out with survival, and then it was really fun, you know, at first, and then after that I grew more towards I want to build stuff, so I headed to creative role. Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. The name is pretty embarrassing, but I like cute people. Okay, if you want to Google that, you can just go and search for that. Yeah, so because I created back in poly, so you know, names. Okay, and yeah, so this is some of the builds that I did. Okay, so my channel is revolving around Minecraft plus Disney related builds itself. So you can see, I think this one was one of my better builds. This was Arendelle for Arendelle's castle, the Frozen. So I did a Frozen and a summer version. So I made a video of it transitioning from summer to winter as well. Yeah, so I like Ghibli related stuff as well. So Ghibli House Moving Castle, and then we have Tangled. And I mean, there's still much more that I created, but these are just one of the main views. Yeah, so if I bring back to now, you know, now I'm more of I would say I consider myself more of a retro gamer. So I'm a big fan of games with the pixel art style. So I don't know why pixel art has this kind of charm to it, even though it's not that realistic and like compared to 3D stuff, it has that very handcrafted magic. And then when you're playing it, kind of really it makes me dive straight into that particular character or the environment itself, especially with the color palette that it can go along with. So I like pixel art games, and especially I like the action-packed games such as the roguelike genres, such as Dead Cells, Nuclear Throne, Enter the Gungeon, and right now I'm playing the Binding of Isaac. Yeah, so roguelike is generally it's punishing returns. So basically, you play the game through runs, multiple stages, and then as you progress through the runs, the game gets harder, and of course your skills need to improve. So train your skills go all the way up, and of course there's along the runs there's certain types of items which you can pick up which are randomized, which helps you to improve the general state of a run. Yeah, so these are just the type of games that I like to play. And for the style of the games, I love the Art Deco style, those vintage New York 1950s era. And one of the games was Bioshock. All three um, all three games, Bioshock 1, 2, and Infinite. Um, for me, I love Bioshock the most because the narrative was really on point, even though I'm not a big fan of narrative games. Um, yeah, so because Bioshock instilled a mood that, when I first played the game, it really gave me that kind of tension and, that grip when you're playing games. It's quite intense, I would say. And I think this is where all of my inspirations, all of my interests starts to gather. Because Bioshock had that very nice soundtrack and all of those 1950s soundtrack, which I kind of dig into. Yeah, so back to TimeOut itself. Okay, so the game was a final year project. It was a game made in 1 year, 2 semesters worth of time. Okay, so I decided to go with the Unity engine because it was, as compared to Unreal, because I think Unity handled sprites much better than Unreal did. But I know Unreal had this paper 2D for sprites, but I think in general I would still hit back to Unity and just give it a shot again. Yeah, so I had to face my nightmares of C# programming. Okay, so back then I was trying to figure out things again. Yeah, so the objectives of the game was to, there's two. First of them was to raise awareness on social disparity. Okay, I wanted to highlight, some points about the rich and the poor in terms of, not just in Singapore, but in general, like in the living conditions, the clothing that we wear, and basically just the main idea of social disparity. And also wanted to recreate this 2.5D effect in which you have a pixel art character in the 3D world, such as the game in the last night. And of course, in the vintage retro Greek Gatsby era. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about the first point. So if you've never heard of The Last Night, it's a pixel art game, it's a cyberpunk pixel art game, which is still in the process of being developed. Basically, all of the sprites are 2D, but they're placed in a 3D environment, and then they give this kind of parallax to that scene itself, which gives it that uniqueness and specialty about this particular game. Because compared to the traditional pixel art games, they are mostly like in a flat plane. So when I saw this first trailer, my mind was instantly blown away, and then I knew that I wanted to recreate something like this in the style. Yeah, so the other aspect was to also create a cinematic experience. I wanted to kind of tell a story as well in a sort of like a game and movie format. So that's why in TimeOut later on I will share why we have that, the black bars that we have in the game itself. Okay, so this is one of the footage from the last night. It was one of the scenes itself. Okay, so you can see that even the lighting conditions, all the reflections, in the street itself, everything was so on point. Yeah, so, and then this was also the footage from time. I would say I was quite happy with the result. And also, yeah, because of all the trials that I had to go through, I think it was quite worth it, see it come alive. Yeah, so I was experimenting with a lot of techniques, and then yeah, so this was one of the scenes itself. Okay, so for timeout, at the start it was supposed to be a side scroller, so you only can go left and right. But then I think one of my friends, he showed me Octopath Traveler. So I never heard of the game before. He showed me on the Switch, and then I was playing around, and then I realized that the characters can actually move instead of left and right, just left and right. Can also move forward and backwards. So I was thinking like, what if my game could move, my main character could actually move forward and backwards as well, and that would be cool, because in the pixel art world everything's all planar. So I decided to kind of push the boundaries and try and incorporate this z-axis approach. So basically pixel art with the ability to move forward and backwards. Okay, so this was a scene that I think I was quite happy with. So we have this alley scene which Sherwood comes up from the bar itself, and then you can see that the background we have the rich and the rich area because of all the bright lights, and then you can see that at the foreground we have the slums. So in a sense, it's kind of like saying that we're transitioning from the slums area to also the rich people's area. Okay, so back to the second point, which is social disparity. I wanted to show the stark contrast through highlighting characters and environments in the game itself. Okay, so these are just some of the inspirations that I got from the New York side of things in the 1950s, the golden era. So we have the slums, which you can see um, you can see that everyone's generally quite depressed. Because of all the clothes that they wear, some might be in rags, even the streets might be littered with a lot of rubbish, trash. As compared to the bright lights we have in the downtown area, New York, Manhattan. So we can see big billboards, cars, vintage cars are kind of like passing through the streets, and everyone's just wearing such a good-looking outfit to brave the cold that's coming. So I believe that TimeOut could portray this through two different scenes. One it's the slum scenes, which is the one which will come out after the office. So you can see that along with the time concept on everyone's head, everyone has this very minimal time, around a few minutes or so. At most, some goes up to about a few hours, and that's it. So everyone here is essentially quite poor, but they're still taking their time to walk. So I could say that this was one of the fact that everyone has kind of accepted their fate. So they know they're going to die, and then they're just contented with it as well. So, and then the next scene we have, it's the downtown scene itself. So this is the bright lights, rich people's place, and back then bicycles were kind of like a luxury. So you can see that some of them were riding their bicycles. In their time as well, there are over hundreds of days, some even with a few years worth of time. So I think these two scenes as well as the time concept helps to kind of spark that contrast between the idea of social disparity. Okay, so more towards the technical side of the game itself, or basically how I managed to create this game within 1 year's duration. It started off with ideation. So I think back then I was still in exchange, and then I was in semester 2. I was nearing the end of exchange, but I think back then in school they were kind of pressuring us to form our ideas ready. So I was thinking along the lines of in time, because I watched the movie some years back, and then it just popped up in my mind again. Suddenly, I just okay, then I went with that idea, and then I never really seen this concept of time been applied to any sort of games before. So I decided, why not? Why not create, this game with the idea of time on your head? So I decided to go with this, and then, of course, I kind of tweaked the storyline to have the idea of fake time, so as to not completely retain the same concept as the one in the movie. Okay, so it's gonna be a narrative game, just like all of my previous games, and then I went ahead with this idea. Okay, so my professor was also very helpful in terms of coming up with ideas with me for this game as well. So that'll be in the pre-production stage. We have 1 year timeline. So because I had 2 semesters, my first semester would be to establish a pipeline for asset generation, programming, sound design, and how am I going to do everything in 1 year. And because I was also working solo, so had to really think through, how to fasten certain processes so I can get things done quicker and meet the deadline. Okay, so first sem was for establishing the workflow and pipeline. Second semester was for fine-tuning I would say fine-tuning the narrative, and also um, to finish up the rest of the assets and throw in the sound design and the voice acting. So that was to kind of rough summarize everything in the second semester, and basically to ship the game itself. Okay, so my professor Ray Hopkinson, he also helped me with finalizing the narrative, and also drew up a script so that each character has certain words that they can say, and then from that script I can draft out in my mind like what are some of the scenes that I plan to create for these particular characters and for the story as well. Okay, so I did some tests for sprites itself, like how to achieve the sprites that looks that generally sprites are just a flat 2D image, so they do not have any sort of like a detail on it. So in order to fake the appearance of shadows on a 2D image, you need to create a normal map. So basically, you just have to use a normal map and just apply it onto our normal sprites. And there we go. In this test on the right, you can see that our 2D image now has sort of like a gradient that falls off. And that's how, when Sherwood walks through the streets, you can see the light reacting on him, as well as all of the environments that's inside the game itself. Okay, so I use one software, it's a Sprite D-Lite. It's basically a normal batch exporter. So it allows me to automate normals, because usually normals are hand-painted using some Sprite Illuminator, Sprite Lamp, all of these other softwares. But generally, this just helps me to speed up my process of generating assets, and also to create environments. Yeah, so the one in the bottom, you can see it's more of a test asset, just throw in and then see the composition. And then once I'm happy with the look with it, I decided to kind of like throw in the post-processing, all of that. Okay, so for the breakdown itself, everything was done and 3D models were done in Maya, because I tested out, hand drawing sprite by sprite, and then that would take forever for me to complete, Yeah, so that didn't work out, drawing sprites. I decided to also do rotoscoping. So basically, it's just drawing over animation of a friend. Basically, just film my roommate, and then I tried drawing over him, but that still took too much time. So I decided to go with 3D 3D models, because it was much faster, and there's also Mixamo for the animations of the characters as well. Okay, so 3D models put in Mixamo, and then after that you render out as a low res images, and then you put it in Photoshop to clean up, and of course put it into Unity for both assembly and programming. Okay, so that was how generally all of the characters were done. I also use Fuse, so Adobe Fuse for some of the characters in the scene itself. So that helped me to create more variety of characters, and not just simply like just one character's walking down the street, which is not that immersive of you, I feel. Okay, so sound-wise, I was using Audacity, and yeah, for all the mixing of the sounds, and also for the, yeah, so generally Audacity. Okay, so after that, once the game was more or less kind of like ready, or more or less finalized, and it was nearing completion, I decided to, at the start, I didn't intend to publish the game. I didn't make it free to the public, or basically all I wanted was to just film a gameplay of my game and then just post it on YouTube, and then that's all. But along the way, I think my professors, my friends also told me that it'd be such a waste to just post a video of a game, and instead you let people try it out. And I decided to go ahead with the idea of releasing the game to public, and also because we also had an issue of copyright, because I was using some vintage soundtracks as placeholders when I was working on the game. So I also faced the issue of copyrights. So I think that was also one of my factors in terms of not wanting to release the game. Okay, so I think I managed to got a fund from the National Youth Council. So I think with that fund, I managed to get the soundtrack royalties out. So I managed to pay for those soundtrack royalties, in which I can use it for my game. So that was one of the factors that led me to publish my game itself. Okay, so this grant allowed me to cover the soundtrack royalties, as well as the voiceovers, which were done on, which are sourced on Fiverr, because I believe voiceovers would definitely help create an edge to the narrative storytelling rather than just having a text that's display on the screen and then the person's supposed to read it like this. Okay, so yeah, so voiceovers, and also we do have some plugins. I think it's actually there's only one plugin that I was using. Like it was the Ocean one, and then yeah, that's more or less about it. The rest were just coded from scratch. Okay, so after getting the fund, I decided, to try to release some images and try and publicize the game. Because since I was gonna publish it, maybe it'd be good to share some on social media. So at first I was starting out with Instagram and Facebook, but of course I didn't really get a lot of hits. So I think I had used Reddit a very long time ago and then stopped using it. So I decided to head back to Reddit again and Twitter because I also had a Twitter account. And I think I got a little bit lucky there. So that from then on, it managed to get some kind of traction. And so I was like constantly releasing certain trailers or GIFs prior to the release itself. So I think 1 week before the release, I was like releasing 3 times a week. So that's more or less the release week itself. Okay, so I think it was also Reddit and or social media platforms was also a great place to help gather feedback, because I was really quite thankful for all the feedback that came on the online platforms, because that helped me to improve the game, such as, because originally, we have the subtitles, we have it aligned from the center. So that might be distracting for the people to read and follow. So I decided to left align it, and then I think it's much readable from there. Okay, so yeah, at first the text was also rather thin. So I decided to go with a bolder text, which looks much better and more readable right now. Okay, so I also opened up the game to online collaboration as well, because I had so many characters in the scene in my game itself, but then they were kind of empty, I would say, because they were just walking in the street. There wasn't any sort of interaction when the player walks past them. It's just very devoid of any sort of feelings. So I decided to create like some narrative for them by having them like having a text that appears on the head whenever you walk past them, so that we have some kind of interaction. So of course I couldn't really generate so much narrative for all of the characters, so I decided to open it up, and then I managed to receive about 27 collaborators. So basically asked them to come up with some scripts for the poor as well as for the rich folk. So let's say in this case we have if only you could eat time, then now you can see that I placed it on his head over here. So that's more, I would say it's much more easier for me, as well as it also kind of contributes to the community in terms of inputs into the game itself. Okay. So I also managed to credit them back in the credits section. Yeah, so this was quite impromptu. So because I had a piano bar scene, right, we have the part whereby the detective plays the piano. So I originally wanted the That's Life piano playing by this pianist called Malcolm. Really thankful for him for collaborating, because when I asked him if I could use this soundtrack for my game itself, he said yeah, sure. He was really happy to share this and share this song with me. But he said that, you know what, I think I'll create another song for you. And within 1 hour, he tried and play a piece itself, and then he sent it to me, and then this was the final result. It felt really good. I think he really did a good job with this piece, and in 1 hour's time, I was really thankful for him. So thanks, Malcolm. Okay, so the game has been released on the 8th of May on the itch.io platform on PC, Mac, and Linux. But I think there are some issues with certain, certain Mac models. There's some black screen here and there. But unfortunately, I've not been able to try and figure that out. I think it's due to the Unity version I was using, the high HDRP or high definition render pipeline. So I think there was a little bit of bugs here and there. But I think in future, maybe in future games, I'll try to sort that out as well. Okay, so anyway, that's more or less what I have to say about TimeOut, and this is my Twitter. So if you're interested, you can follow for more content. And also, if you haven't tried the game, it will be at this link over here. Maybe I'll just share it in chat so you can take a look. I think it's in the Discord chat, right? Yeah, so I'll just drop this link in the chat again, so you guys can hit to the link and then download and play it. The gameplay is about 20 minutes, so I can also play through this game, and maybe while playing this game, I can also comment on certain things that I did for this game. Yeah, so I'm just gonna share with you my game. Oh, yeah, okay, let's see. It's timeout.
Yay. By the way, if anyone has any questions, just feel free to type it in
Yeah,
chat.
so feel free to let me know. Okay, so yeah, so any questions can just let me know while I play this game. Yeah, so the backdrop was like this, and then I just hit play. Right, so you start off with the office, the detective's office. You can see that you can move left and right, and also now you also have the ability to kind of move forward and backwards, which I feel like it's a great add-on because this enhances the foreground and background, the parallax that's over here. Okay, so you notice that there's also some black bars at the top and also the bottom. And because back then I was trying to create this kind of cinematic approach by having those header bars. You can also choose to play it as a game itself. Under the graphics option, we have this mode itself. Right now it's set to movie. If you switch the game, you can see that now it removes the bars itself. Okay, because back then I was working on my laptop, so I thought that the cinematic bars really help to make this game seems as though as you're controlling a movie character itself. Okay, so you pick up the device, hit space. So whenever you want to activate the time device, you can hold the R key. So that will activate and visualize your time on the top of your head. Okay, so you just pick up the phone and go over here. Okay, so another issue was also the speed of the display itself, of the text appearing, because based on your own performance of the computer, this affects the speed in which it loads. So this is also one of the factors in terms of playability. I think because some of the feedback that I received was that some computers were slightly slower, so they couldn't really load finish before the text kind of auto changes to the next sentence. So maybe in the future updates, I'll probably change this to non-loading kind of effect. Okay, so once you exit the office, you are greeted with the scene itself. Okay, so basically it's a slum scene. You see that everyone is kind of looking relatively down, and then of course we have that sentence that pops up on the top of his head. If you move on to this lady, I just want to watch my kids grow. Okay, so even though it's pixel art, it's still relatively, I would say, it's still quite intensive for the GPU because of all the renderings of the shadows. But I think it's still, I tried my best to optimize this game so that it's quite playable. Okay. Okay, so you can run using the left shift. You hold down the R key, so you can see that. Oh, okay, he's dead. So basically, you can see that over here, the game introduces to you the fact that when time expires, you die. Okay. Let me see the. Okay, so of course you over here, you proceed, you try to run, but then of course, show it says, I need to borrow some time. So you head to the time lender. I decided to keep all the UIs quite clean, so that you just go ahead to the nearest spot and just explore. That's what I intend to, without any sort of kind of like prompts popping up. Okay, so quite clean. I just like to keep it that way. So he says, hold on, let me check your credit score. But your score's way too low. Just like in real life, if your credit score is way too low, your banks wouldn't lend you some money, right? Okay, so that's what happens to Sherwood. And of course, being a sad detective he is, with 3 minutes worth of time, it's his job now to head to the bar, meet the client in hopes of getting some time. But along the way, he meets this masked or hooded figure. Okay, so he says, your time's awfully low. I can loan you some time if you like. Minimum loan of 5 years, and I'll have to collect 1 hour at a time you need. So it's more of a loan shot, I would say. Okay, it sounds too good too good to be true. So you have two choices. You can choose to accept or decline, but I would suggest going for the accept because due to time constraints, I didn't really follow up on the decline deal. I mean, if I was given more time, I would branch that out to more to another storyline. But because it was a final year project, I decided to just keep it linear, and that's why you can, for now, you can just accept the deal itself. Okay, so if you decline it, you die, and then you restart from the checkpoint again. Okay, so guess my lucky day. You receive 5 years. Okay, so now you can see that I reach. You have 1,825 days, and of course, he kind of hints that this mask is a little bit strange. So he goes on to the bar and finds the client. Okay, so inside the bar itself, you can see that we do have some characters just basking and chilling inside the environment itself. And of course, if you want to buy a drink, you can do so. Fancy having a shot of whiskey for 20 minutes of time, press E to purchase, and then you can drink it, and then 20 minutes will be deducted. But of course, you're already rich, so who cares? Just spend. But I don't know whether if you're in real life, whether you would spend this money or your time, because time is your life as well. And also we have this bar scene. You can play the piano. I think certain people have missed this, but yeah, this is just a little fun thing that I put in. So you press E again, that will stop playing. Okay, so of course our job is to find the client. So along the way we have certain clients. If you hit R, you can see that the time is over there. Okay, so all of this dialogues was from the online Google Documents collaboration. Okay, so meet client. So her name is Jennifer. She needs Sherwood's help because she has only 5 hours, and that's all she can pay him for this particular job. So her husband was killed by fake time. Okay, so it sounds unbelievable, but a mask seller offered him a loan of about 2 years. Okay, so it was very low interest rate, just like what Sherwood had. And then after knowing that, her husband was killed, and after she was buying clothes. So basically his time kind of ran out. And Sherwood, being a detective, he was a bit doubtful of this scene itself. So he decides to help the client. So likewise, help the client. Okay, so with that, he goes on to kind of figure out this mystery behind that. So over here, he hits down to the door on the right, so that allows him to exit the bar. Okay, so he exits the bar, and then he realizes that, why not with this money I could, buy a new car and, have some little fun with it before, going back and solving this mystery. So he heads to this taxi stand and to hail a cab. Okay, so over here is the Z-axis alley, so you can see that the character is able to walk forward, and then at the far end, in the far end of the background, you can see that the streets are kind of like bright, and all the bright lights are there. So you can also walk across that, and maybe some fun things that the car will actually stop for you. Okay, so the car didn't stop for you, but I think it was supposed to stop for you. Okay, like this case. Okay, not too sure why that didn't happen, but so you can get a rough sense of the boulevard and have a sense of the environment itself. So yeah, the taxi stops for you. Okay, so hit the E key, hail a cab, and then you just have to wait for the cab. So a few things that I noticed because I'm working on this desktop that I recently got, and it's much faster. All of this vehicle seems to work a little bit slower as compared to when I was working on my laptop. So everything seems to be fine on my laptop, but then when working on a more performance rig, now all of these little bugs tend to show up. So I think that's one of the considerations when you are kind of developing a game as well, to take note about the handling of all of these calculations in the game. Okay, so this is the downtown area. You can see Fox Theater. If you hit R, you can see all of them are relatively quite well-to-do. Okay, all of the conversations as well kind of relate to the rich people as well. So you can see that, okay, for this lady, so would you be my time daddy? Something like that. So you can be my sugar daddy because I'm, I'm rich and everyone is poor, all the peasants. Okay, so yeah, you can also walk across the street, but now I think there's a bunch of, I'm just gonna walk past them. So you walk across. Okay, so we're generally heading down to the car shop to get a new car. Okay, not sure why Siri activated as well. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back and go to the car shop. Okay, so car shop, it's this Cadillac shop over here. So I want to buy a car, and then I'm gonna talk to this salesman. They say, "Good evening, sir. How can I help you?" So he gives me a choice: buy black or red. I'm gonna go with the black. So yes, black Cadillac. So the light, I'll take that. It is a beauty for sure, and that will be a payment of 2 years, please. So he got more than enough time, but then the salesman says that, oops, you're not enough time. So if you don't have enough time, you aren't able to pay for the car. I can't sell you the car itself. So right now, you're wondering why I don't have enough time. So over here, usually you like to check your time. So in this case, we have the time is depleting really quickly. So you can see that from 1,000 over days now it drops to over 600 days, and it's really dropping really fast. So of course, we need to go back to the Siren Alley to investigate what's the issue behind this depletion of time. Okay, so I'm gonna get a cab, and hopefully that cab could bring us back to the alley itself. So it gets in the cab. Okay, so now it's the night time, night scene. So just now it's evening, now it's night. You can see it's, things are a little bit more drastic. You can see that press R and people are gonna die, about to die here. So over here we, we do have a shootout. So you can see that the player tries to walk past, but then this drunk man or this guy was being shot down by a hitman. This says that's for trying to steal time. We do have, then he kills the guy over there. So this was a little hint that there could be some sort of gunplay involved. Good. Okay, so he goes back to the time lender again, and then he tries to kind of talk to the time to Rob again. So it says, watch out on where you get your time from. But it's already too late because we've already did the iffy transaction with the hooded figure. So of course we just have to walk forward to the place where and try to find him. Okay, so this is the place where I got the loan. Wait, it seems like the place in front is open now. Okay, so there's this lighted up place, so you can go into this back alley. Okay, so inside this back alley, it's a casino. So you can see that it's an underground casino, and over here, all of these people are giving hints that it's run by some masked figure. So we actually stand and watch what they say. There's a little hints here and there, and you can see that at the end of the corners of this casino, you can see some hooded figures as well. Okay, so generally this casino scene, so if you try and go up to talk to all of the hooded figures, so over here you can see that you're not allowed in here. So this is one of the henchmen itself, presumably, because it's wearing a mask, the hooded figure itself. And then we'll lead you to this stairs, so you can use the stairs, go up the stairs. And then of course, being a very smart detective, is able to figure out that this statue has a little bit of secret to it. So of course, goes over here, interact with the statue, and then this mysterious bookshelf opens, just like all film noir movies. Okay, so yes, the bookshelf closes on him, and then suddenly he's being engaged in a shootout. So there's a gun that's over there. Okay, so like I mentioned, because now I'm working on a faster PC, everything is much more, like the movements of the characters is faster, and I didn't really take into account when I was working it on my laptop. So on my laptop, it generally looks quite good. The speed is quite okay, but now you can see it's quite fast and erratic. Okay, so you have to press T to shoot, And then now we do have some issues that I recently discovered as well. So you just have to shoot them out. So notice that when you shoot them, you can see that their time depletes from 330 days all the way to a certain amount of time. So this could hint something, you know, why is their time depleting and why is it only half an hour remaining? So this time concept was also health indicator as well. So you know when you shoot in, your time depletes and then it drops down, and then when it depletes to 0, it dies. So it was I thought it was quite a good idea. But then the gameplay wise, I received feedback that you know it's not the best because it's very clunky, because it's hard to aim, especially we're working on a 2D but 3D environment, so you don't know where you're shooting. So maybe that's also one of the considerations that I have to take note for you know gameplay mechanics wise as well. Okay, but for most of it, this wasn't meant to be a shootout or shooting game. It's just more of a narrative game. Okay, so he realizes that you know everyone's time seems to be depleting strangely, and then he kind of gets a hint that you know all of the time that he has was kind of fake, because now you can see that he only has about 3 hours left. Okay, so he gets this lift. If you want, you can also shoot this gramophone. Yeah, it gets destroyed. Don't mistake. So I always loved the concept of lifts, and I thought this would be quite cool. So I decided to incorporate a lift inside this game itself. And then especially like during this lift scene, you can see that the environment itself, the cities that's behind the backdrop itself. So I guess this was also a way to showcase the transitioning of the different scenes. Okay, so we're over here walking, and then we can see the kind of a very nice view from here. And then he makes his way. You can see some dead bodies on the street, on the floor. Okay, then he makes his way over here. Grand Hall. So this was probably, if you know, it's more inspired by the Bioshock. Fleet Hall, I would say. Yeah, and also Senator Cohen, as you can see from the mask. So it's a big inspiration over here. So of course we have this guy called James Fitzpatrick. Okay, so he notices that the detective is here, so he manages to get here, and then now he needs to prove to him that you know he didn't make it past his minions without any sort of luck. So he has to defeat another wave of baddies before he can meet the real mastermind itself. Okay, so let's try and kill them all. A few waves. Okay, so the background music is an orchestra. I think it was I can't remember what the song is. It's one of the classical pieces as well. So all of this soundtracks was from Epidemic Sound. So we got the license from there. And the thing with this licenses was that usually you use it for your own website or your own YouTube channel. It's not really for releasing on a game, because if you use it on a game itself, you have to kind of clear the copyrights for other people as well. So let's say if someone uploads a gameplay of this timeout, so I have to kind of manually find the video itself and then kind of link it in the clearing section of Epidemic, and then from then on, it's quite troublesome. So I would suggest, I mean, for myself, next time if I was to make a game, I would probably hire a musician, because in this case, the jazz part was a bit hard to find, especially for those kind of grand music. I was having difficulties finding it, but just nice Epidemic has that very nice fitting music in there. Okay, so just nice, we finished the wave of minions. We realized that you know, the lights came on, and then at this point in time, James appears on stage. Okay, so he says that you know not many could survive such overwhelming odds of defeating people. So he offers you 10 years, and then of course Sherwood, he doubts it and says it's 10 years of fake time. You know, what is fake time when what you see is real? Because fake time expires, you know, unlike real time. But you see, I'm only providing people what they want. Okay? A ray of hope in this suffocating society. and you give them what they need. You want to make them rich, but in fact, just when they're about to celebrate because of all the time that they have, they die instead. So it's more of a sadistic, satirical kind of thinking that James has. So when he transacts when the Huda figure kind of gets that 1 hour from you, because when you first lend the money from him, the Huda figure takes 1 hour of real time, but it gives you fake time of 4 years. So basically, it's just trash. So all of this real time will be given back to this mastermind, which is James. So you can see that he's really, really rich. It's 64,007 days, 64,000 years. And so this was to kind of show the contrast of that he's really rich, and then now the detective is really poor. So you can make a few choices over here. So it's a double ending. One of them is to if you take this mask, you unlock one ending. But of course, if you don't want him to, if you don't want to take the mask, you can also choose to shoot him, and that will also cause him to his actual time to actually deplete all the way to 5 minutes. And that could suggest that he has all fake time, and his whatever that he has was just putting on a fake show for everyone. Okay, so over here he says that society is judgmental. The look in their eyes when they see your time, just like in real life, when you see maybe Instagram followers or with a lot of followers, maybe that's not who they are really in their real self. Okay, so this was one of the choices. So if you want to accept the mask, you can also do so. So now you can choose to wait out the first 4 minutes and he will still die, but also you can also just do bang, shoot him. Yeah, so and what happens next? You get greeted with this curtains opening. So you can see this little machine at the back, and then it starts to slow down and it starts to stop. Okay, so you can see from there, everything, the lights start to black out. And then you can see the CDs at the background starts to black out as well. And in this case, there's some shrieking sounds or screams over there. You can hear that, when the city is kind of collapsing. Okay, so this could be an inkling to show that, that James was kind of connected to the city, or in which the time machine, when you kill him, the time machine stops. And then maybe the whole city was running on fake time. So it's a very open-ended ending, but that one I will leave it up to your own interpretation. Yeah, so this was more of the game itself. So it's very short, a little fast-paced, 20 minutes game, and we have the title screen over here. Yeah, so give it a try if you like, and if you have any questions, just feel free to ask me.
Yeah, there's a few questions just now. So I
So
think with the gameplay, Matthew was asking, does the time counter actually work? Like if I left the game on for 5 years, would the character die? I don't think that will happen from what we saw from the gameplay.
yes, in fact, it counts down on game time. So if you wait there for 5 years, you will die.
Oh,
But there's certain scenes in which like the car salesman scene. So when you actually buy the car from him, you minus a portion of the time. But so there will be the time counting down over there. But before that scene, everything runs on the game time itself. So
Okay. Saintat also asked, are those voxels? Which one were you referring to?
actually, let me see.
Yeah. Voxels. I don't know which part was he referring to.
They were all pixel art, so basically it's all 3D models, but then they were kind of rendered out in a low resolution, what is it called?
Okay.
Low res, and then try to put it in Photoshop and then put it into sprites. But of course, there are some 3D models, such as this, like cardboard boxes, which I thought, I was experimenting a way to kind of blend this 2D and 3D environments together. So having a simple default primitive box wouldn't bring a lot of I thought it would be a good way to help blend in the sides, especially in some parts when you're walking in a vertical fashion, you can hide certain parts of the walls or like the intersections itself. Yeah, so that's when I kind of tried using 3D models to blend 2D and 3D together.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions?
cheats.
Y'all
Wow.
can have feedback about the game, about the presentation,
You
about
can activate cheats, not bad.
Let's see. It allows you to fit into the new level.
I really want to see this game expanded. Like what if expanded more?
Expanded more, right? I was thinking along those lines, but then I would say I'll see how it goes.
Mm.
Maybe like a new kind of setting or new kind of concept game might be more interesting as well.
Okay.
Yeah, for that I'll still keep in view.
I think Andrew wanted to ask about the grants.
Yeah,
So
Andrew wanted to ask, but I'm trying to ask him like what specifically.
I see.
Andrew,
you can unmute
Andrew,
yourself.
Andrew, get your ass out.
Maybe I stop sharing and then I can see the chat.
It's okay. What the fuck? What the fuck?
Right.
It's
Okay. So managed to see the chat right now. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's a lot of us trash talking. But yeah, there are some questions which we already asked. So I think if Andrew is not asking, I would like to ask. So your funding from NYC, right? How did it begin? Did you go to them or did they find out about your game?
I decided to drop them. Let me just quit this first. Yes. Basically, I just applied through the National Youth Council. It was the let's go to funding page. It was a National Youth Council grant. So basically, you just had to submit like the concept or basically how you like to improve the community in some ways. So for mine, the game was more towards social disparity. So I think they kind of accepted it, and also I submitted the script as well for the whole game itself. So you had a look through, and then I think everything was kind of okay. Some issues to sort out was the copyright. So I could prove to them, with the fund, I could get royalties for my game, and that way copyright would be resolved. So that was okay. So that's one point. Second point was uh, basically to open up more and engage the game to the community as well. So I decided to go with that through the online collaboration on Google Documents, through script writing, and everyone can collaborate together. So it's more cohesive. So I think with those 2 points factor in, the grant was kind of given. So that's, I think it's high chance to get a grant. You can just look into National Youth Council, Youth Changemakers, Young Changemakers grant. So if you're making a game, you can look into that.
Okay, cool. Thanks. There's a question from Singtat. How are the characters animated? Do you use keyframes to dictate each animation type for each character?
If I were to do that, it would take forever. So I didn't have really time to hand animate everything. I tried out with one character, and then that took me quite long. So I decided to use Mixamo for the character animations. So Mixamo has a large white library of animations. So basically, it will auto rig your character as well as you can select the animations that you want. So mostly for this timeout, the actions are quite generic. So like walking, running. For more complex one, you have to hand draw the sprites itself, like the one on the cycling. So I don't think there's any cycling animation on Mixamo, so you kind of have to hand draw that. But it was a good compromise because this saved me a lot of time instead of having to keyframe everything. I wouldn't be able to complete the game as to how I would like it to be.
So was the enemy at the end, right? He was doing his hand waving
Yeah,
movements.
yeah.
Was that keyframe
Yes,
or?
it was Mixamo animation as well. So
All right.
just nice. If not, I would have to hand draw. There's one scene, I think, the hooded figure. So I think that's one of the parts over there. So that was also hand drawn. I think my good friend helped me with that as well. So
Nice.
just that part. That's fine.
Okay, so Andrew asked, do you have any tips for applying for grants? So Andrew was he presented at the previous indie Soapbox.
Mm-hmm.
He did this game called Ghost Lore, which is a isometric pixel art sort of game based on Singapore Southeast Asian horror lah. So he's also quite solo dev, but he's saying that if he gets the grant, he will be able to pay freelancers and thus more freedom to release the project for free.
For the grunt wise, I would say you can try this Young Change Makers grunt. I think they offer up to about 3K. In my case, it was about there, but I didn't manage to use everything because it was in the form of reimbursement. So basically, you spend and then you claim. Of course, you can also consider this opportunity. Another way would be, I would suggest it's crowdfunding on Kickstarter or any sort of crowdfunding website. I believe that, you know, if you have very attractive footage of the game, you just document your Kickstarter well. I believe that you're able to kind of gather some funds, and if it goes well, you might even bypass your expectations as well. So I think that's also the good thing about Kickstarter. So if I were to make a new game or the next game, I would definitely look into that platform as well. Yeah. Apart from this two, I think I'm not too sure of any other grants there is in Singapore. I think previously maybe MDA had some grants over here, but
A long time ago, yeah.
yeah, so I went to check and then there was none. So a bit sad, but okay, still managed to do so.
Hmm. The grant, right? Like,
Yeah.
was there any clear KPIs that you had to do? Because you talked about engaging the community as well as talking about social issues. Are these specific KPIs set up by them or
I think it's more of personal KPIs,
right?
what you want to achieve through your game itself. So in my case, uh, I wanted. Oh, they were also concerned about reach. Okay, so how was this game going to be, reached out to the public as well? Like, you were supposed to give an estimate of how many people were supposed to reach. So at first, I gave about 25,000. So I think 25,000, 30,000. But I think I believe you reach more than that now. So I think it's good to have a rough sense of your target audience as well as your estimated reach, and then how are you gonna achieve your estimated reach, and in what way? So you can prove to them that, of course, once everything's done, once you publish a game, you can show them maybe some feedback or some documentations, and then that will be better as well. Yeah, so I was just sending them links about the gameplay and some of the publicity that I got. So I think that helped to kind of secure the funds as well.
Okay. Andrew asked, how did you present or pitch it to them? What's the process of pitching?
Okay, so by right it was supposed to head down to the National Youth Council, but I think due to this COVID, it was all online. So it's a Zoom call. I think it was only me and another group. That's it. So the other group has about 3 people. I was just solo. So basically, what's my concept of the game? Pitch to them my concept, my game, basically the reach, how am I going to achieve it, and your objectives on the game itself. Yeah, so if you like it, yeah. Most of the time, I would say, because some of my friends from my school, they also managed to get the grants for their installation works, and I would say it's a very good platform for you to get some funds in.
What's the for NYC what's the age limit to be considered a youth that's applying for this grant? Was it 35?
Let's see. Let me just drop the link for the grant as well, so you guys can. Let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna drop the link for the.
Yeah, there's a
Oh
PDF.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think someone sent it already. So
Mm.
for 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 youths, let's see.
Yeah, I'm reading also.
Can't really remember the age range for the grants itself.
Down
But
there, must be submitted by a Singaporean or Singaporean PR, aged between 15 to 35.
35.
Yeah, that's the definition of youth. Let me see. Project must not contain any inflammatory or discriminatory elements that may disrupt racial and religious harmony, have any political agenda, or be contrary to the interests of the community and society at large. Well, I guess because you weren't like poverty is a setting. It's not like the main theme, right, of the game. I mean,
Yeah, it's just part of it.
mm, yay. Does anyone else have any question? Just feel free to chime in or just chit chat.
Can I ask a quick technical question? Basically, did you render out the 3D models, or do you just throw them in and downres the whole scene kind of thing?
I rendered out the basically I render out in Maya. So basically I just save it as individual PNG sequences from Maya itself, and then imported it into Photoshop to clean up, and also to after that goes back to Unity itself for the animations.
Okay.
Because if I were to put the 3D model into Maya and use a pixel art filter, I think it wouldn't really achieve that sprite effect that I was going for. So that will still look a bit voxely, which isn't what I wanted.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, okay. Anyone has any questions, just let me know.
Brian. Where are you, Brian? Time to sabo, Brian.
I just spilled sauce on my keyboard, so sorry.
Walao. Oh my god.
Yeah, I thought it was, I think because when I created this game, it was kind of like a journey which I wanted to enjoy it. So I decided to create a game. So it was quite satisfying, like the outcome. And I would say that if you're interested in making a game, or if you have, as long as you have a good idea and a very cool idea that you can follow through, I believe that you should really go and just try it out. And who knows, man, you might make it, might make a very interesting game. So I do look on Twitter for inspirations, for ideas, maybe technical inspirations as well. So that's just more or less. Right now, I'm just trying to find an interesting idea to maybe work on the next game.
Yeah, I got a question. When you posted on Reddit, what were the specific subreddits that you posted in?
At the start was pixel art. Then I went to Unity, and after that was indie game. Yeah, so I think this three. I wanted to try out the R gaming, but I think for some reason I couldn't post it there, because if I posted there, I believe it would have gotten much more traction.
Yeah, try posting it there now lah. Nothing wrong with.
But I think because of the spam kind of thing, they didn't really allow it. So I just gave up. And it stuck to, I think Pixel Art was quite a good subreddit for this kind of games.
Between Reddit and Twitter, which one do you think gained more traction?
I feel like Reddit was at the start. Reddit is more constant. Twitter was, it came after Reddit. So basically Reddit will bring in the audience to your Twitter account. And then when you start posting on Twitter, because it's much easier to share things, followers will kind of grow. And from then on, basically Reddit is a place to kind of spark out or start, or to shine some light onto your project itself. And then Twitter is for your continuous updates. So I think Reddit is really a very good platform for publicity. I mean, because like a nobody can actually just share something and the next day it becomes like 100K upvotes or something, front page of the internet. So yeah, and then from then on, all those people will follow you. That's the start.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's something that a lot of us can learn from, because I think, like I mentioned to you previously, I guess a lot of devs here, they not very super into the social media game, but actually it's really, really helpful in the sense to get feedback as well as more fans. So yeah, it's great. Anyone has any questions? Any more questions? Just feel free to ask.
Hi, I'm Grace, and I would like to ask a question. I'd like to ask, is the current scope of the game what you initially planned for?
Mhm.
Like, were you planning for a bigger game and you had to scope it down, or did you expect not enough?
Oh, wait,
So the question was whether I had to scope it down because it was a bigger game that's planned. I think the game went accordingly to how I planned it to be. I took note of the paths. I wanted to keep it as linear as possible so that I can manage my deadlines properly. For the other path whereby you have to decline it, I chose to not put it in for my final year project because if I were to do so, it would introduce a whole new set of troubles and all of this um, um, back end stuff. Because originally the game was supposed to be displayed in human barracks as a physical graduation show. So the participants could either just select, I'll just play through it once and then that's about it. So I didn't really factor in until the last moment whereby I decided to publish the game. So I believe that everything went according to plan. Yeah, but maybe added in another path if given more time.
So I have some question. I'm Emmanuel Yao. I'm sorry if I'm asking you some question that you already answered during your presentation because I was on off. I'm working at Ubisoft. So for me, I want to know first, what is the big challenge for you to do this game?
Big challenge, right? Okay. For me, it was conceptualizing and as well as idea generation for the narrative.
Okay.
So if I couldn't think of an idea, I probably wouldn't have gone to create this game. But the idea that I had, I mean, along the lines of the in-time concept, and also with my help from a professor, helped solidify the general direction of the game. And also with this idea, I was really excited to I can kind of visualize this whole project in my mind and how all the scenes are gonna play out by itself. So as long as the idea is good, then I believe I can execute the whole game.
Okay, okay. And how long does it take? It takes you to do it? Is it 1 year? Is it like 3 months?
For this timeout, it was 1 year. So it was the span of this for a final year university project.
Okay. And my last question is, what is the language that you use? Is it C++? Is it Python? Is it Unity? What kind of language do you use?
In Unity, C Sharp.
C Sharp, okay. Okay, good. Congratulations. I think it's really amazing. And I saw a lot of comments and yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone has any questions?
Sorry, I was wondering why the cats have so much time in their life.
Why do you think so? Why do they have 9 years?
Can have 9 lives? I don't know.
It was just like a little fun play.
Yeah, it's quite a nice touch. Like I feel like your game has a lot of like small little Easter eggs, which is quite fun. I mean,
The game, I felt that I almost gave up halfway at one point of time, whereby I thought it was done, but I think the social media kind of helped me to give me motivation, especially Reddit as well. So like back to social media, I think it's really good place to not only gain publicity, but also to gain motivation for your work as well. Because even though if you get negative feedback, you can improve from them, from them. Then you just kind of post it again, and then people will see that you're making improvements. Because I made some posts throughout the weeks, and then some of them said that, oh yeah, you have managed to change this particular thing. So that's also some kind of encouragement, and that people are actually looking and observing your game as well.
So I guess a great tip from you would be don't be afraid to showcase your game to the public now.
No, yeah, definitely. No matter what, you will still get feedback, whether it's good or bad, and then it's how you can improve from it.
Okay, Andrew asks, how often do you post on social media?
How often? To be honest, all the publicity came very late because, like I said, I didn't intend to publish this game, so I just uploaded let's see, a video or a gameplay teaser. Okay, also another tip. Let's see. I'm just gonna go find my first game teaser itself. Give me a second. Okay, I'm just gonna share with you the link on. So this was originally my first footage, our first release of the of the game itself. So as you can see, it's more towards a cinematic kind of look walkthrough, and it wasn't as effective as just conveying the gameplay itself. So if you're making a trailer, really go straight to the point and don't just cut down all of this fancy scenes, unless your game is more towards the showing the aesthetics of the game itself. Okay, so when I first started this, it was in March, my first post, and then it got a little bit, and then it kind of died off. So I didn't really follow much into it. So back then I was just, oh, okay, because I'm not gonna publish this game anyway, so it's perfectly fine. And then after that, I decided to go ahead with publishing this game. So I started to post the actual gameplay footage of the game. And from then on, it kind of reached about 6,000 upvotes on Reddit. So I think from there, I was like, oh, I was very surprised. Like, oh my God, what's happening? Yeah, so from then on, I kind of picked up the pace in releasing some publicity materials, such as some GIFs, some gameplay elements on both Reddit and Twitter as well. And of course, I think Reddit wants to see more of the gameplay side of things. Twitter, you can post anything that's up to you. Yeah. So I think it was once a week until the final week, which I kind of rushed it. So I was posting once every 3 days before the release date itself. And then basically the release date itself, I just posted another video and then just like share it around.
If you were given a chance to expand on this game, right, let's say even more funding, right, would you also expand your team?
Definitely. At the start, when I was making this game, I required a pixel artist as well as a composer who could do jazz music, because that's the kind of mood that I wanted. So of course, jazz composer in Singapore is definitely hard to find. So I had to outsource most of the stuff. Pixel art, I did it myself. But if I were to find a team who could do like a pixel artist, I believe that most of the assets would be more, I would say, more standardized. And also, it will also help me with creating a larger environment as well as storyline, and also saving time.
Did anyone ask about the voice acting yet?
No.
So yeah, how did you do the voice acting like direction on your own, or did you work with someone to coordinate, or basically all the actors just sort of took the lines and
Yeah,
one take?
I did find some suitable actors on Fiverr, so I just went and searched transatlantic accent. So I mean, back then it was the 1950s kind of accent. So at the source for all of this, it was quite. I would say it's quite. It was quite okay to find them. Some of them did this kind of stuff. For one of them, which is the Jennifer, which is the client itself, we had to kind of do like 2 takes because the first one wasn't that convincing enough. Like she wasn't that sad, so I had to kind of make her cry. But I think she did a really, really good job, just like all of the other actors, especially the enemy or the antagonist. So he played the voice for the Huda figure as well as for the James Fitzpatrick. Yeah, so he has this comical, cartoonish voice in which he can. It's quite flexible in terms of his range of voice acting, which is very impressive.
Wait, this guy was also from Fiverr, or was he local?
Fiverr as well, Fiverr.
Mm.
So everyone's from Fiverr. Yeah. So
Okay, so basically international. From an audio point of view, did you worry at all that the mixes were different, or they were like, oh, you're not recorded in a very different way, kind of thing? I mean, this is probably Gwen's question actually, but
I think I didn't really think too much. I just received it, and then I tried to use Audacity to kind of cut between the different, especially during conversations I had, because I had the detective speaking as well as the client speaking. So to just cut between the 2 audios and try to lower and match the audio to about the same level. So I think with that, more or less, you can either slow down or speed up some of the sound. That was also done in Audacity. Generally, I think it was quite okay.
yeah, I mean, this is basically a huge compliment, but I think a lot of games I've seen that have dedicated, like actually went to Hollywood or well, not Hollywood but they hired dedicated like voice directors and studios and whatnot, actually have done worse jobs.
Thanks. But I really believe that sound is more important than the game itself, because you can have a game without sound, it's fine, but imagine a game sounds so bad with all the screeching noises, you can't play the game itself. So the game is like the second immersive factor of, bringing everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah, says the president of sound.
No lah.
Kidding.
No, it's good because I feel like your collaboration, I mean, not just with the script writers in the community, but also the pianist, right, was really, really great. I mean, it seemed to me that you had this energy that it bounced between you and your audience as well.
I think this all came because of the social media motivation, to be honest. Yeah, I just decided, because of copyrights, I was just thinking, I need to reach out to this person and just ask for permission. And then, yeah, it really, he gave me a call and then say, yeah, okay, let's make a new song. And I was just riding on a train, a motivation train.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, the fact that you even have the guts to approach people, to work together is quite a feat already. Because I think a lot of students generally, maybe they're a bit afraid to ask people, what would they think about my game and stuff like that. But I think for you, good things come because you ask lah, So very good example. I wanted to ask, it seemed to me that your game is influenced a lot from the media that you consume, like the shows that you watch, the art that you like, even the music that you listen to, right? And I think even the cause itself, like wage disparity, is something that you are personally interested in. Like, is this something that you feel maybe a lot of people your age or up and coming game developers should do more of? Like really watch more films, read more books, listen to more music, be passionate about things.
I think maybe that's the case for me. I feel like I'm more towards the feelings. So if I find something that I'm really interested about, I'll just go in that particular direction. And I encourage people to just also to try out different kind of experiments. Because maybe if you're working with Unity, you can go with Unreal. Maybe you might discover something that you might be really interested in, or a kind of technical thing that you might be happy with. So for me, I would say that to help me foster my motivation throughout this game, I would say that I like to make environments. So if it's sometimes when I get depressed or when I get depressed or when I get unmotivated, I will definitely try and kind of composite an environment until I find that it looks good, and then from there I'll be happy again, and then it kind of repeats itself for the different scenes itself. So for maybe the rest who are into game dev, yeah, feel free to try out all of these possibilities, because there's still so much to learn, and this game is just a small portion of the whole thing. Yeah, so just keep exploring.
That's great. Are there any last questions before we just hang out?
Yeah.
I have a couple more.
Yeah, please.
At least one more, I guess. From a competency level, do you feel like in the process of making TimeOut, you were having to learn a lot of stuff or call upon competencies to discover new competencies that you weren't taught either in during your coursework in ADM or before that? Like, do you feel like you had to learn a lot of extra stuff, or is this game actually something that in theory any student at ADM could have done?
That's a good question. I would say that in university it's more they focus around the concept, ideation, but technicalities you really have to learn by yourself. So all of this were just really trying out different ways of approaching the game itself. So the first semester was, I would say, is the tougher one, because I had to experiment with what works and what not, especially for the sprites, how to get the shadows, how to get the reflections in the puddles, and everything. I had to just kind of search it out, and also had help from some of my friends. Who's a very good programmer, and then he helped me along the way. He also made one of the scripts, which is basically the core scripts for the game itself. Yeah, so thanks Shadow for so if it's here, I'm not sure if it's here. So thanks for helping out. And yeah, I think while learning all of this, it was quite a good and fun process, because when you have a problem and then you can't figure out, the next day you go and try it out, and then you solve the problem. That's a really, really good feeling. So yeah, it was a very good learning experience.
I guess the follow up to that is, because when like for me, I'll speak for myself personally. When I first caught wind of TimeOut, and I shared it with some people, they were like, "What? WTF? This is made in This is made in Singapore. B." And these are like VFX, technical director level kind of people going, "Huh? How did a student do this kind of graphics? Wow, yeah, kind of thing." So it's like that's why my question is like sort of, do you think there was something unusual about your process that helped you to unlock the I mean, I know that you kind of look at some like your inspirations like the last night and kind of go, okay, how do I achieve that? But I feel like a lot of people have probably said the same thing and didn't arrive at that result. So I'm just wondering if you can think of anything you did in your process that sort of helped you to push yourself and your working partners into that result.
I think for me, in terms of the visuals, I'm quite sensitive to the graphics as well as the aesthetics as well. So I kind of know what works, and especially the lighting, all of this. I believe that I can kind of it's more of multiple testing to kind of achieve the look that I want. And I would say lighting is also the most important, because it either makes the game or it breaks the game. So I tend to focus a lot on lighting itself, and I had to work with some technicalities such as the sprites itself to work with lightings, such as the one which I was showing, the sprite, because that is generally the main core effect that the game is based on, normal map sprites. So of course, it's not as easy as just saying it's normal map sprites and you get this kind of visuals. So of course, I had to play around with a lot of post-processing. Usually I'll just mess around with one scene and then see whether it fits the tone. So I'll spend about a week or so just to kind of fine-tune and nail down the scene itself. And then after that, I'll experiment with the next level, which is maybe reflections. So sometimes reflections helps to add the layer of depth to it. And of course, I was trying to find out, how to make my sprite character put it onto the water puddles, because it's just a 2D image. So these are just some of the technical things that you have to kind of consider, and also to really go and experiment with it. Can't really say if there's a method for this, but for me, for how it works for me is just setting up scene, throwing in all of the details, testing out the core effect, which is the normal sprites. Then maybe I'll use a light source to kind of rotate around it to see if it affects that character itself. And then for reflections, it's more towards screen space reflections in Unity itself, which allows you to overlay it with that, to allow you to get some reflections on the water puddles itself. And apart from that, to enhance the visuals, it's more post-processing, color grading as well. So to get that vintage sepia tone for this evening scene, and for the night scenes, each scene has their own settings for post-processing. Yeah. So it's just a combination of all of this working methods, I would say.
Makes sense. Do you think you learned you learned your way around using all of these methods to achieve the visual look you want? I mean, the visual look you want, do you think that's something you just sort of learned inherently from the media you consume? Or like, some people will say, oh, I had to attend like a videography course or a lighting course in order to like lighting in real space, not in video games. Like I had to go attend a lighting course in order to learn how light is properly manipulated so that I can understand it in games, blah, blah, blah. Is that something you already came equipped with, and you knew at the start of the year, your 1 year on TimeOut, you knew, okay, this is the general impact I want to make? Or is that something you also discovered along the way?
I think it was also, for lighting wise, I'll probably say it's discovered along the way. So, especially if we're working with a 2D and 3D combination, there are some rules in which what works and what doesn't work. So like I tried putting in a 3D model with weird organic shapes. It will stand out and pop up from the scene. So I think while experimenting with all of this, I learned a lot, especially. But I do have some general knowledge about how light works in terms of what makes it look believable, and what makes it look fake. So if you put a lot of lights, you see it's all overblown, or too many lights, but you see the puddles of water, there's too little reflections. That's something that you need to fix as well. So of course, I'll just throw in a few of the reflection captures to kind of make sure that the light is exactly as to how it looks from real life. So one of the ways I would try to compare this is also to look at real life reference video. So on YouTube, I think you just search for London rainy day street with water puddles, and then I'll try to kind of think of how can this scene, does it look the same as my scene itself? Does it look realistic? Yeah, I'll just do comparisons to see, and until the point where I feel like it looks quite decent, quite okay, then I'll just move on. So after I move on, it repeats again. At the end of everything, I'll just go back and check again, make sure like after a few months of work, I'll go back and see if I like the scene again. If I don't like, I just enhance it again. Yeah, so I would say this is the process.
Makes sense. One last thing, this might have been discussed earlier while I was away, but so it sounds like your process is actually like you have to you have to start every scene sort of from scratch, and like is there work that carries over between scenes?
Generally, the main, because creating assets, I would say it's quite okay. So it's quite manageable. The time to create assets was quite fun. So usually I would just duplicate a scene, and then I would just swap in some of the assets, and we use some of the background tiles as well. So like one particular building itself, can just kind of clone it and put it at the backdrop. so it wouldn't be that obvious. But of course, I do have some contrasted elements so that it doesn't really look too repetitive. And apart from that, I think that's it's more of compositing the scene to make it fit to the narrative as well as for the player, and also the camera angle. Another thing is also camera angle, because notice some parts of the game we have zoom in, zoom out, and I was also fiddling around with it. So how I work with is set up the scene, then I move on to the camera angle next, or no, in fact, work on the camera angle first and then setting up the scene. So some parts where you're working indoors, I would like to have a tighter view of the detective, so I'll push the camera a little bit closer for the camera boundary box. And especially for the downtown one, I want something to be very pulled up. So I'll tend to zoom out and switch the field of view again so that it gives a very, gives the viewer impression of a very free space. Like, the character is very in this open world. As compared, as compared to the slums whereby, the field of view is a little bit tighter and you don't really see any sort of sky in the area. So it's more constricted. So camera angles is also very important to factor in and to tell the story as well. That's one thing.
Makes sense. Did anyone ask any questions about the combat system?
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Boom.
I don't really see any question on the combat system, but yeah, just now when he was trying to shoot, right? Like he thought he was, I think he thought he was shooting the enemy, right? But then it just went through. So there's like that depth thing. It makes it a bit hard for combat.
So that was one of the things I was experimenting with, because now we're in a 2D sprites and we're in a 3D environment. So I was thinking of how can I implement gameplay in such a 3D world. So so basically, my first thought was to align the z-axis to kind of, if you want to shoot, if the bullet hits the right z-axis, and then the player dies. So I went along with the idea, but of course I gave some leeway so the box collider is a little bit big, so that when you shoot near the guy, you kind of get hit. But this is not that perfect, so maybe some possible ways of fixing this would be to implement like a highlight option. So if you're aligned with the guy that you're shooting, you might be glowing white and fading in again. But of course, because I wanted to keep this gameplay clean, very clean, so no sorts of and also focus on the narrative, I decided to just kind of go with this and just have some fun with it. The other thing I didn't factor in was the speed of the computers. So everyone has a different kind of setups. So I'm not too sure. When I was working on my laptop, I was calibrated it for my laptop itself. So I didn't factor in the consideration of other people's computer speed. So that's why the characters can kind of fly in, fly out. And for some reason, I don't know why the T key also gets stuck on sometimes, but on my laptop it's fine when I try to shoot. So I think this is also one of the issues about game development. It's you have a wide range of spectrum to target, as well as a lot of bugs fixing, which is I would say it's okay. It's sometimes some bugs are fun to fix, but some when you encounter a very strong and stubborn one, or you have to really write out or rewrite a whole chunk of your code, then it gets a bit annoying sometimes. But ultimately, always plan your game properly before you start to write out a main concept or mechanic. So like the dialogue itself, I implemented the auto timing thing at the last minute, so I had to kind of rewrite some parts and then time it accordingly to match the dialogue itself so that it will switch properly. So it's usually it comes with proper planning so that it reduces the final cleanup on those bugs as well. Also, one thing I'll probably look into in future games would be localization to multiple language. Also, and that will also have to rewrite the whole system, because I would like to implement like through a RTF file or text file and then put it into the game, so that would be easier. Because right now I'm just inputting it through scripts in the game. So basically just create an array and put some sentences inside. So it's a little bit tedious, but I mean, so it works for now, so I'll stick to it. But maybe in the future I would like to check out or try out some other forms of easiness in terms of input for narratives.
On that note, localizers love Excel or CSV files. Like anything else will give them nightmares.
Sorry.
Because with multiple languages, they are basically working in tables. So the leftmost column is English, and then all the other languages go into the different columns, like the different columns thereafter.
Yeah, basically, if you hard coded it into your game, it's a nightmare. Ryan's
I have definitely seen that before.
Yep,
Yep.
I have seen that before. Woo. That's a headache, man. Okay. Anyone else have any other questions? If you shy, you can always type in the chat.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, hello.
From
Sorry, I was lurking around. I got a question.
Yeah.
I forgot if you've already answered this. But what was the thing that kept you going in? Like, have you ever had a moment where you kind of felt sick and tired of working on it? But what was that one thing that kept you going to finish it? Because I know a lot of developers out there. They have sometimes they get stuck in a rut and they kind of stop. Yeah.
I think so. For me, it's the environments. I usually love to see because I do have multiple scenes, and then each scene there is a change in environment. So I think that was the thing. That was the thing that kept me going. So because when I create environments, it kind of makes me happy when I see the final output. It looks different from the previous one, especially. So like the bar is an indoor scene, and then when I transition out to an alley scene, that's something different. So it isn't repetitive, I would say, in terms of creating the same set, the same kind of style that's out there. And also, I went along with my interest of the film noir look and also the Great Gatsby era Art Deco style. So I think that was also a motivation for my work as well as music. So usually I just play some very retro vintage songs while I make the game itself, and that really helps me to really put me in the game itself, and how everything looked like, and this soundtrack's also kind of I would say enhances your work as well, subtly, I'll say.
It's interesting because I think outside of I rarely hear people say that as a source of inspiration, because you mentioned environment design, because I was also into that kind of stuff, and that's the reason why I make games. So it's interesting to hear people use the term environment art or environment design as opposed to like game design and sound design. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think this game was more towards narrative. There wasn't any sort of gameplay elements to it. But I mean, if you're working on a gameplay shootout, or you come across you manage to fix something technical, then that might make you more motivated to carry on to the next part of the game itself. So I think it all boils down to more subjective objectives that everyone has.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much for answering.
No problem.
I think one question from me, kind of related to Brian's question just now, in relation to how do you get your keen eye when it comes to lighting and shadows and camera angles and cinematography? Because I mean, we spoke before, we talked about ADM, we talked about the first year, right? Like, for example, did the first year exposure to all the different kinds of art forms, 2D, 3D, whatever, help you at all?
Nope.
So sad.
First year was foundation year. I was figuring out what to do. But I think because everything started with Minecraft, really. I believe
Right.
The thing. So I think from then on, I kind of got a little bit more creative, to the creative side. Because I was also making videos on YouTube. I think that's where all of the cinematic stuff was being kind of developed subtly as well. So it's more of a gradual process of the different games that I play, as well as Minecraft being a huge factor on that. And of course, the years in university in year 2, year 3, and year 4, I picked up some modules. So I think in year 2, I picked up Maya. So I took a Maya course, and then from there, I went into 3D. I was very interested in 3D design. Then from there, I tried to kind of play around with Unreal Engine. And then of course I always have my roots back in pixel art, so definitely head back to pixel art and try it out in Unity again. Of course, come back and kind of combine this 2D and 3D together to make TimeOut. So I think it's Minecraft is
Minecraft is a huge factor.
Yeah, because it encourages you to think like a creator. I mean, there's the gameplay aspect of Minecraft, but obviously for you, you love to create these. You love world building, and like Minecraft, as you start to deal with narratives in Minecraft, for example, like doing all the machinima stuff, right? Then you start uh, forming that taste, lah. It's like how people start to make movies using Sims, that kind of thing, and they start thinking more about, okay, how does this camera angle portray a certain mood?
Yeah.
And also Minecraft has the mods, so sometimes you need to use like world edit or something. You also have to type in some code, and maybe that's where I was interested in coding. And then maybe that's why I decided to try out game design, and it's quite familiar in a sense. Like you just have to understand the syntax. I mean, as a newbie in C# last time, I was very scared of it. My friend or my friend who worked with me on the first game, joining the school, Mark, he also I had nightmares. I'm never going back to Unity again. So yeah, but I think I went back again, and then I tried it out. So I tried to understand, how all these things connect. Also had my friend Shadow, so he helped me out with understanding and breaking down certain C# languages, and that really made me more confident in terms of coding the game itself and programming certain things that I want to. But I would say right now it's still quite simple. Probably there's much more to learn, but it works for the game, so I'm quite happy with that.
Okay, great. Are there any more last questions before we wrap it up, because it's 9 o'clock already?
It's not
Time
really.
for results. Oops.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if you noticed, Chris, but your video have 100K views from Alpha Beta Gamer.
Oh yeah. So also publicity-wise, Alpha Beta Gamer was, I would say, the second wave of publicity hits. So I think I reached out to him, like say, check out TimeOut. Yeah, he said I'm very happy to showcase that. So thankful for Alpha Beta Gamer as well to help get the rest of the gaming community to kind of have an impact on, or basically to try out TimeOut as well. Yeah.
I just want to add it in because I think outside of Alpha Beta Gamer, there are a couple more. If you want, I can send it to you afterwards. But there are a couple of less players along those lines.
Yeah.
That play those kinds of HIO games.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, if that's all, thank you so much, Chris, for presenting, and it was super valuable information. I'm sure a lot of people learn a lot from it, and yeah, we're very excited to see you expand on the world or see you work on your second game.
Thanks for having me on this.
Yay.
Thank you for coming.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. I know it's a public holiday and you're all very eager about the results, but thanks for all your time.
Woo!
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording now.